Right, guys, welcome back to another episode of the League Express podcast. My name's Jake Kearnan, and joining me as always is the editor of League Express, Martyn Sadler. And Martyn, for the first time in a few weeks, we're by ourselves.
It's just us two. Yeah. I had been hoping to get a pretty important guy on with us today, but from a club that's been in the news, but unfortunately he couldn't make it. Better not say who it was, just because I don't want to embarrass him, and I'm hoping we'll get him on in the very near future. But occasionally it's not a bad idea, is it, just to have the two of us just to reflect on what's going on in the game and looking at some of the big games and looking ahead as the season unfolds as we get to the so-called business end of the season. So I'm perfectly happy for it just to be you and me today, Jake. If you are, of course, which
Mate,
hopefully you
yeah,
are.
no, absolutely, mate.
Sitting in the rain in Australia. It's been a recurring theme, hasn't it, of these podcasts recently, that you're sitting in the so-called Sunshine Coast, which is it true that it's going to be renamed the Rainy Coast, mate, because you're just getting so much heavy rain all the
Yeah,
time? And
mate,
here
that's
we
it.
are in England suffering from drought-like conditions. And I mean, if people are watching from Australia who are getting sick of being wet through from the rain, come over, come over to England, because we're just not getting any. I'm sick to death of actually watching NRL games that are being played in heavy rain.
Oh, mate, yeah, it's unlike anything I've ever seen, and I'm starting to think it's me who's brought the rain back with me.
Well, you've taken it from us, yeah,
But
yeah. Come back.
if you told any Aussie on the street, mate, that England was experiencing drought-like conditions, they would tell you you're lying. But yeah, without further ado, Martin, how about we get into this weekend's matchups, mate? A lot of interesting matchups, that's for sure. But what was the one that stood out to you?
Well, clearly Wigan v Hull KR, second versus first. Wigan went into this game 4 points behind Hull KR. So they needed to win to sustain a challenge for the League Leaders Shield. They didn't manage it, 10 points to 6 to Hull KR in the end, despite Wigan scoring a fairly late try to make it a competitive ending to the game. In fact, it was a very poor performance by Wigan. Their ball handling, I've not seen a Wigan side with such poor ball handling skills for quite a long time, Jake. And if we're really honest about it, I think Hull KR dominated the game for most of the 80 minutes. And they should have won by more than 4 points, if we're really honest about it. And I don't think Willie Peters, I mean, Hull KR have now moved 6 points ahead of Wigan at the top of the table, and they're almost certain now to win the League Leaders Shield, which is a great achievement. It's the first time they will have done that. But I don't think Willie Peters will be really too ecstatic about that performance. I'm sure he wasn't, because, of course, with Wigan dropping the ball so often, making so many errors, that they should have won by more. Hull KR's attack, I don't think, is functioning quite as well as it might do. And I think, to be honest, if Wigan had played to the best of their ability, and let's not forget that Wigan were without Bevan, French and Junior Nsemba, I think, Wigan would probably have sneaked through that game. So the warning signs are there for Hull KR. Don't take anything for granted, and I'm sure they won't. They're going to have to improve on that performance, particularly if they play Wigan again at Old Trafford, which is certainly a very strong possibility.
Yeah, absolutely. I think towards the end of the match there, that very last play, where it looked like Wigan were going to have a chance to potentially, put on some kind of play to snatch the game there right at the death. There's just a little bit of not inconsistency, but the passes weren't hitting the mark, and it looked like they were
No.
really looking for Bevan French,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
he just
yeah,
wasn't there to save them this time.
yeah.
A little bit clunky, but I wonder if Matty Pete's looking at that effort thinking, we hung in there right till the end. We still got to bring back Bevan French. I wonder if he's quietly confident that, they can mix it come
Well,
finals
I'm sure
time.
he will be quietly confident. Hull KR, it's really interesting, isn't it? I think Hull KR are going to be a much harder test for them if they do play each other at Old Trafford, and that's by no means guaranteed because, of course, Wigan have got St Helens and Leeds right on their tails, looking at that second place in the table. There's no guarantee that Wigan are going to retain second place in the table, but, you'd think they would do, but, there are quite a lot of games still to go and some fascinating contests still to take place. But Wigan, they've got this incredible ability to rise to the occasion of Wigan when it really counts. And you might say that last Friday night probably for them didn't really count because even if they'd won it, they would have still been 2 points behind Hull KR. They've got a very inferior points difference that they probably couldn't make up. So even if they finished on level on points, Hull KR will probably still win the League Leaders' Shield, one would imagine, the way things are going at the moment. So I think Wigan will obviously be looking at the playoffs. If they finish in second place, they'd only have to play one game to get through to Old Trafford, as will Hull KR. And I think that will be their focus, to be honest. So let's not assume anything. If you're a Hull KR fan, you've really got to now start planning. I think, or if you're the Hull KR coach, Willie Peters, you've now got to start planning how to win that first game in the playoffs, whoever it might be against. It could be against Leeds or St Helens, Lee or Hull or Wakefield. But then you've got to plan how to win the grand final. And that's the crucial thing, isn't it? They lost their 9-2 last year. They want a second bite of the cherry, and this time they want to seal it. They want to win it. Nothing else will really be good enough for them, I don't think.
What did you make of the decision to yellow card Liam Farrell for that tackle on Elliot Minchella as he ran through, chasing that kick through? Do you think it should have been looked at as a penalty try, or were you happy with the yellow card?
Wasn't it? Very close. I mean, referees don't like to give penalty tries unless they're absolutely certain that it would have been a try without the foul play. And I don't think anybody could say that Minchella would have touched down that ball for a try for certain. So I think it was probably the right decision, and certainly a yellow card for Liam Farrell. I don't think anybody questioned that at all, of course. But so I don't think that had an enormous bearing on the outcome of the game, and I don't think Wigan could complain about it. And to be fair to them, they didn't complain about it.
Yeah, and the other matchup, mate, that sort of caught my eye: Hull FC defeating Lee, 18 points to 12. It's like a pretty tight battle, this one.
Well, that was a terrific match, actually. That was a Saturday afternoon game, and I really enjoyed it. Hull, Cade Cust scored the first try for them. I really like the way he's played for Hull FC this year. I mean, he's had one or two injury problems, but I think he didn't quite do it at Wigan. Lost his place at Wigan, then went to Salford, and never quite fitted in there either, I don't think, in terms of his partnership with Mark Sneyd and so on. But he seems to have done extremely well at Hull, and I mean, he opened the scoring for them, and they scored 2 tries from their wingers, Harvey Barron and Lewis Martin, and Lee were. I mean, it was such a competitive game, but it was. I think Hull deserved to win it, and John Cartwright was absolutely ecstatic after it. If you saw his reaction when the final hooter went, it was a terrific match. But Lee are an interesting case at the moment because it wasn't long ago that they were having tremendous wins against all their rivals for the top 6 places. They were beating Wigan, they were beating Saints, beating everybody. And then suddenly they've had this slight lapse in form. They lost at home to Leeds, and now they've lost to Hull, which in themselves are not necessarily bad results because obviously Leeds are very competitive and so are Hull this season. But they've just slipped a bit and they're now down to fifth place. They're only 1 point outside the top four. And if we look at this weekend on Friday night, they play Salford at home, which obviously is a banker for them. So they're certainly not out of the running for the top four, but I think the top two might now be just beyond them. Although there's still 5 games to play, they're 3 points outside, 3 points behind Wigan in second. So I wouldn't rule them out entirely. But I think they've not. I don't think they've got that difficult a run in, but they've just lost that edge. And I think Adrian Lamb is a bit puzzled as to why they've lost it. It didn't look particularly happy on Saturday afternoon, and I can understand why. They're just not quite firing as they have been doing earlier in the season, and it's difficult to put your finger on precisely why that might be.
Yeah, and the good thing for Lammy is they've got 5 weeks to figure it out. So I think if you're going to have a lull, now is the time to do it. But they need to get out of that slump that they're in if they want to go far
They're
in the
not in any
playoffs.
danger of not being in the top 6. That's the important thing for them. They will be in the top 6, so they will be in the playoffs. I mean, the top 5 clubs are 4 points ahead of Hull. Well, actually, it'll probably be, yes, Hull are in 6th place on 25 and Lee are 5th on 29. So they're pretty safely lodged in the top 6. So I don't think they've got too many worries in that score, but they want to be coming into the playoffs, with good form and with prospects of actually getting to Old Trafford. I know Derek Beaumont, who's quite a keen Manchester United fan. I know Derek obviously his ambition is to get to the grand final and, if possible, to win it. So they will be all fired up, and it's going to be a hell of a playoff series this year because I think we're going to have 6 teams who are going to be in pretty good form by the time the playoffs begin.
No, absolutely, mate. The other 2 matchups, big score lines. Well, there's 3 other matchups, but the 2 with the big score lines: Saints defeating Huddersfield 52-4, and Leeds defeating Cass 64-6. Jack Welssby's return over the weekend. Good to
Yes,
see him back in the Red
Came
V.
off the bench. Yeah, came off the bench and came back about 6 weeks before he had originally been expected to come back. And I mean, I don't know how they've managed to, help him recover so quickly, but I'm sure they're delighted that they have. And but it's a slight dilemma though for them, for Paul Wellens, because Tristan Saylor's been playing outstandingly well at fullback, and of course that's Jack Wellsby's position. So, and I'm pretty sure that Welssby will move straight back into that position for this weekend's game at home to Hull FC on Friday night. I've not seen the squad hasn't been published yet at the time that we're discussing, but I'd be amazed if Welssby wasn't selected at full back for that game. So the question is, where does Tristan Saylor play? Does Tristan move to stand off? Does he or does he come off the bench? It's going to be an interesting one for Wellens. They always say that selection problems are nice problems for coaches to have, but I'm sometimes a bit dubious about that, really, particularly when a player like Saylor has been playing well, but then the guy who's got first claim over the position actually recovers from injury. It can be quite problematic, I think.
Oh, mate, I think that is like the biggest lie coaches tell, right? Because
Yeah, yeah,
either way, there's going to be one player that's going to be disappointed that they're playing in a position, out of their preferred position. So,
absolutely, yeah.
yeah, I don't know. It must be their media trainers, mate, that are telling them this is a good response. I think I'd be pulling my hair out trying to make those decisions. But yeah, mate. So do you think St Helens are starting to hit their stride at the right time? It looks like they've strung a few good
I mean,
performances together.
they hammered Wakefield at Bellevue just a week ago. And but you remember when Matthew Ellis came on our podcast a few weeks ago, and he actually, I think it was the week leading up to the St Helens game, and he actually made the point that St Helens are the one team that Wakefield struggle against. And his words proved to be actually prophetic, didn't they? Because that was absolutely right. For some reason, Saints just seem to have the wood over Wakefield, and I'm sure they'd like to have the wood over every other team, starting with Hull this Friday night. I think that we'll probably talk about the weekend's games a bit later, but I think St Helens are a very dangerous team to everybody else in the playoffs this year. I think they've had some tricky moments earlier in the season, and there was a lot of disquiet among the St Helens fans, who are very demanding supporters. They don't like it when they're not playing at their very best, but I think they should be feeling very happy at the moment, because I can see St Helens going all the way to Old Trafford. If any team posts St Helens in the playoffs, then I think it's going to be very dangerous. The way it looks at the moment, if the playoffs worked out as they should do, given the top six at the moment, we'd have a semi-final we'd have semi-finals of Hull KR Leeds and Wigan v St Helens. And what incredible games they would be. I mean, let's face it, you couldn't wish for two more, if that's how it works out, of course. And Lee and Hull and Wakefield will have something to say about that, because, of course, they'll be confident about getting there themselves. But those would be great games, wouldn't they? And St Helens would be immensely dangerous for Wigan or for anybody else who might host them. And I think there's a lot to look forward to, particularly for St Helens fans. But by the way, their young winger, Owen Dagnall, scored an incredible try. Did you see the try that he scored for St Helens?
No, I haven't.
Oh, well, just get the highlights up, mate, and watch it, because it was a brilliant individual effort. We sometimes talk about tries that sort of where a winger runs through the entire defence, and I think it's fair to say that Owen Dagnall did something like that, and it was one of those tries. I've written in the past, by the way, that we ought to think carefully about whether we have a 5-point try for tries that result from play the balls inside a team's own half. And that was one of those examples where, if I had my way, get 5 points for that try and not 4. Whether that will... I've raised that with the relevant members of the rules committee over here. And you never know, they might ultimately take notice of me. You never know, Jake.
Oh, mate, keep pestering them. Maybe one day they'll take on your advice.
I'm a pain in the neck as far as they're concerned.
But while we're on Saints, mate, I invite any of our fans that are tuning in who are Saints fans to maybe suggest in the comments section what their ideal backline or lineup will look like with Welssby and Sadler, where they'd like to see Sadler on the side. Maybe that could help out Paul Wellens ahead of the weekend.
Absolutely, yeah.
But yeah. All right,
well,
mate.
I'm sure Paul Wellens would like to know what the Saints fans think.
We'll just take a poll, maybe.
Whether they'll do what they want, who knows?
Yeah, absolutely. All right, mate. Well, how about we get into some of the big talking points that have sort of come up over the last few days or so. The big ones around the international game. There's been a few players causing a bit of a stir. Let's start with Payne Haas. He's put his hand up to play for Samoa. It's been in the rumour mill for weeks now, but he's made it official. They did a nice little announcement at Suncorp Stadium a couple of days ago where he had the Toa Samoa shirt on. What do you make of his decision to defect to Samoa, Martyn?
Well, I'm quite disappointed in a way, because obviously I would have liked to have seen him over here with Australia for the Ashes series. I'd love to know what Shaun Wane thinks about this. Um, it's hard to. I mean, Australia have got so many great players, so whoever replaces him at prop for Australia will no doubt do a great job, and probably it probably won't make that much difference to the Australian team. But he's a great player, and I'd love to see him over here. And but good on Samoa. They've got a terrific player, which must give them a great chance of winning the Pacific Cup this year, especially if Tino Famasa, how do you spell it? Pronounce
Fa'asua Malawi.
Malawi. Yes,
There you go, nailed it.
yeah. Thank you. Um,
That's right.
if he joins Payne Haas and plays for Samoa, that's going to be absolutely formidable, isn't it? Really,
Mm.
the two probably the two best props in Origin, I would say, those two. And what a team Samoa are going to have, crikey!
Yeah,
And
yeah.
what a tournament the Pacific Cup is going to be, by the way. It really will, won't it?
Yeah, mate, there'll be fireworks. I was looking at a potential 1 to 17 lineup for Samoa the other day, and if you are to include Tino and also Hamiso Tabuai Fido, and you mix that with Brian To'o, Stephen Crichton, Jerome Luai, there's just so much talent. I know Blaise Talangi, I think he qualifies for Samoa, so he could partner Luai in the halves. Spencer Lenu, these are all household names at the moment.
Yeah, yeah. It makes me glad we're playing Australia, not Samoa, this year.
Mate, I don't think I think Australia would struggle against Samoa as well at the moment. I think they'll be very dominant. Um, but yeah, mate, I think Shaun Wane. I don't think he'll mind too much that Payne Haas is sitting this one out.
Probably not. Well, I mean, if we can win the Ashes this year, it's going to be massive for for rugby league on this side of the planet. I think, Jake, and but it's going to be massive. I mean, New Zealand versus Samoa, the opening game of the Pacific Cup this year at in Auckland is going to be quite incredible, isn't it? And the New Zealanders will. They've got a big task ahead of them. So, international rugby league is really going to be quite fascinating, and that game will be played on October the 19th. So, it's going to be a week ahead of the first Ashes test. So, gosh, that's going to be really a great game to watch, I think.
Yeah, definitely, mate. And I think Samoa are playing Tonga at Suncorp in Brisbane for one of the matches. I believe I saw.
Yeah, the second game on October the 26th,
So
which
I'm
is
there. If I'm
yeah,
going to be booking my tickets to go to that one, mate. I think that'll be a cracker.
yeah. That's the weekend when we play the first Ashes test as well. I think October the 26th, is that a Sunday or a or a yeah, it is a Sunday, isn't it? So I think all the games are going to be played on Sundays in the
Yeah.
Pacific. So, but it's going to really be fascinating to see how it unfolds.
Yeah. The other big news, mate, international wise, Billy Smith has put his hand up to Shaun Wane, saying that he'll make himself available for selection for England. Um, what have you made of this announcement from Billy Smith?
Smith's a really good player. The Roosters are making a really great late season charge in the NRL. If I think they're just on the edge of the playoff places at the moment. Or are they already in the top eight? Let me just check. Yes, they've just got into the top eight, haven't they? And I think they will be a major challenge for all the other sides in the NRL playoffs. And I think Billy Smith plays a great part in that. I'm always really impressed with him. So I think he's got what it takes to play internationally. And apparently Shaun Wane was really pleased because he didn't approach Billy Smith. Billy Smith approached him, got in contact with him, and said that he'd like to be considered for England. Um, and um, and Shaun Wane has more or less just said, yeah, well, he will be in that case. Um, so we've got Billy Smith, AJ Brimson, Victor Radley, of course, who's already played several times for England, also with the Roosters. So we could hear quite a few Australian accents in the England team to play Australia this season in the Ashes series, depending on how Shaun selects his team, of course.
Well, just a bit about Billy Smith. He's always been touted as this, great talent coming through the junior ranks, but he's been really hampered with injuries, in his young career. I've just got a list here of some of the injuries he's experienced. He's done 3 ACLs. He's had a shoulder injury, a Liz Frank foot injury, a fractured jaw, and a pretty bad ankle injury. And that was, all before, well, I guess, including last year. So the fact he's still playing rugby league is a testament to
Bloody hell,
him. But
who would play rugby league, Jake? When you hear those, that's
oh,
that sort of makes you pause, doesn't it?
yeah,
What
but
a what a hero he is.
yeah, and he's had a really good season, mate. But I will just, say this: if he thinks he's going to walk into an England side and claim a centre spot, he's got another thing coming because, I think it's a pretty safe bet. If healthy, Herbie Farnworth will be one of those centre positions. But he's got some great English players that he's going to be competing with
Oh,
for that
Joe
other
Gordon,
centre spot.
Harry Newman, gosh, those are the guys in possession at the moment. So
Absolutely,
yeah,
mate.
it's what we were saying a bit earlier. Coaches' dilemmas. I mean, and the point we made about Paul Wellens having that dilemma at St Helens with Welssby and Sailor. It's a different thing on the international front, isn't it? If you've got lots of players competing for particular positions in an international team, that's exactly what you want, and you want to obviously pick the best of them, or the guys who are in the best form at the time you're picking the teams. I don't think Shaun Wane will complain about that at all. I think he's got to pick a squad of 24. I'm not sure what the deadline for that will be. Probably just the week before the first test, I imagine. But it's going to be really fascinating to see who gets into that final squad, and of course who's available, because they've not picked up any late season injuries. That's the other thing. You just don't know what what situation might arise in that regard.
And it is hard too when it's just a 3 match series. If they were preparing for a World Cup, there is that opportunity to give everyone a run and then try and finalise your squad for that, the finals run. But when it's a 3 match series, you want your best 17 out there for every match, right? So yes, I don't envy Shaun Wane for having to make those tough decisions, mate.
By the way, Rodri Jones, the managing director of RL Commercial, was saying in a press briefing on Tuesday that around 38,000 tickets have now been sold for the Wembley test, and they're hoping to attract between 65 and 70,000 people to that game, which I think is a fairly modest aim, if I'm honest about it. I'd hope that they would go beyond those figures when when the publicity really starts for the Ashes series, because of course we've got 2 sellouts for the second and third test, and I would absolutely love to see the Wembley test approaching that sort of status. Obviously, more than 90,000 tickets would be potentially available, but it would be tremendous to see that stadium full for that game.
I wonder, 38,000 is great, but I wonder, like, is this usual, like the usual that, tickets really start to sell the closer the event gets?
I
'Cause I
think
feel like
so.
there's a lot of
Yeah,
seats to still
I,
fill.
I think so. I've not really got any past evidence to go on as to when fans do actually buy tickets for games, but I think it's true to say, isn't it, that as fans become more aware that games are going to be taking place, then there tends to be a spurt in ticket sales. And the difficult thing for the RFL is to know precisely when to start pushing those sales, because of course we're also pushing sales for the grand final. And Rodri was saying that ticket sales so far for the grand final are significantly up on last year's grand final ticket sales for Old Trafford. So, it they don't want to divert sales from one venue to another, I don't suppose. And the grand final is only 2 weeks before the Wembley Test match. So the way that you promote the test, it takes a bit of thinking about, I think.
Yeah, no, definitely, mate. I'm sure they will ramp it up, especially as the grand final approaches. I'm sure they'll be advertising the hell out of it while the grand final is being played at Old Trafford.
Yes.
But yeah, mate. The other big talking point from the weekend, Salford having to cancel their match. What did you make of this call, mate? And I guess how does it make the game look?
Well, it does make the game look good. It makes the game look awful, of course. It's extremely disappointing that it had to happen. But I was talking to Paul King of Salford the other day, and I mean, Paul made it clear that on the captain's run on the Friday morning, they suffered 4 injury setbacks with key players, and the team that they could have put out against Wakefield would have had hardly any players in it who had ever played Super League before. It would have been a mix of young kids, academy players, and so on. And don't forget, the previous week they went to Hull and lost by 80 points to 6. And if you looked at that game, it was the same story in a way. They had a lot of very young players who were being scattered every time Herman Sio took the ball up. None of them could handle him, basically. And there comes a point, I think, rugby league is a pretty pitiless game, to be honest. And there comes a point where if you put inexperienced players up against, full-time Super League players of the quality of someone like Herman Sio, it doesn't just become one-sided, it becomes dangerous, potentially. So I hated to see the game cancelled, but I can understand why it was cancelled, if I'm really honest about it. And part of the Salford problem was that they'd got these captains run pullouts, and it was too late to get replacements from other clubs because other clubs were playing reserve games last weekend and had already named their squads for those games. So replacement players weren't available. I mean, it's a great tragedy, and Salford are limping to the end of the season. I think the RFL board met yesterday to consider what to do. They've not given a decision yet on what will happen to that game, but it'd be rather surprising if by the time people are listening to this podcast, it would be surprising if the news hadn't come out that it was awarded to Wakefield 48-0, which I think it will be. So, I think, and that will put Wakefield up to within a point of Hull in 7th place in the table. But I suppose Wakefield might even think that they would have won by a greater margin if the game had taken place. They probably would, if we're really honest about it. So it's disappointing. But again, we've had all these promises still from the Jacobson management group, who apparently own Salford now, claiming that they're going to put everything right, but the money doesn't seem to ever appear. There's been talk of this mysterious bridging loan turning up for a few million quid into the Salford bank account, but they've been talking about that since about February, and it's still, all these months later, 8 months later, or 6 months later rather, it's still not turned up. Goodness knows what's going on. And I noticed that the mayor of Greater Manchester has requested a meeting with the owners of the club this Friday to try and find out what the hell is going on. And the RFL I'm not quite sure what. I mean, they've eased the rules for loan players to allow Salford to stack up with loan players. So played a small part in making sure that the club can continue to operate. But it's an awfully sad story. And of course, there's the 1873 group of Salford supporters who have marched on the stadium. They've put out statements deploring what the owners are doing with the club. At the end of the day, the ball stops in their court, and at the moment they don't seem to be doing much with it, I'm afraid.
Yeah, it's very disappointing, mate. And for instance, by some miracle, they're able to stay in Super League past this year. What player would want to sign with them?
Well, indeed, and I think that's surely a bit of an unrealistic expectation. They've got this. They've got a court hearing on, I think it's September the 3rd, at which the winding up order is going to be considered, and who knows what's going to come from that, Jake. It's just so there's just so much uncertainty at the moment, and it's so disappointing, particularly for Salford fans, of course.
Mm. Well, I mean, other clubs are starting to reach out to Salford fans. We were talking about before the podcast. It looks like Oldham have offered all Salford fans, not just season ticket holders, but fans in general, I guess, attendance to their upcoming or their next home game, which is next weekend. I think you were saying, Martyn. They're
Yes,
going to let them come and watch it for free.
London this weekend. Oh yeah, I mean, Oldham are a very ambitious club under their chairman Bill Quinn, and they are one of the clubs that will be applying for Super League next year. And of course, the panel has now been revealed that will consider which clubs will be nominated, if any, for Super League in 2026, when it anticipates going up to 14 clubs. And I think Oldham are an extremely ambitious club. Some people might think they're outsiders to get the nod. I think the conventional wisdom seems to be at the moment that the three clubs that will get the nod are, people are saying Toulouse will probably qualify because they'll get in the top 12 on grading. That remains to be seen. I obviously don't know if that's true or not. But then the two clubs that seem to be the bookies' favourites are York and London Broncos, as far as I can tell. Bradford Bulls might be a bit upset by that, though. They obviously have ambitions as well. Oldham and Widnes. So there are quite a few clubs that want to grab those places, and we'll have to see what comes of it.
Yeah, no, definitely, mate. But it's good that we have that competition.
The problem is it won't be announced until October, so the middle of October, until after the grand final. So it's not going to. There's not going to be much time for them to recruit players.
Yeah, I mean it is good that we have all these clubs pushing for that Super League status, though. They're really raising the bar, I guess. And down the track, if we get a chance, we're going to expand to 16 teams, maybe even more. I'm sure they'll be next in line.
Absolutely.
The other news, mate, Catalans have signed Tino's brother, Isaac, for Sua Malawi. Now, I'm having trouble with it, mate.
Yeah.
I joked with you before the podcast, maybe they'll be able to convince Tino to come back over, but it also got me thinking, does this put the Titans at risk of losing Tino down the track? We know he's got that opt-out clause in his contract, and the Perth Bears are circling.
I think he's much more likely to go to Perth than to Perpignan, if we're honest about it. I mean, if I were a player in his position and his contract is coming to an end at the end of next year, that would enable him to fit in pretty seamlessly at the new Perth club, I think he'd be a real headline signing of the sort that they would want to have. So I think he could probably name his own price for going to Perth. And I think he'd also be a marquee player in the sense that, he would attract, if they signed him, I think that would attract other players to that club, and they would look like a very serious contenders. So if I were Tino's management, I'd be looking very hard at that at that Perth situation. But having said that, of course, the Gold Coast would not want to lose him, would they? So he's in a terrific position, actually. I mean, when new clubs come into the NRL, it becomes a players' market. It becomes, players know that they're in demand and they know that the price for their services will rise, and you can't blame them for looking to take advantage of that, can you?
No, absolutely. I'm sure Titans fans will be having nightmares until that day eventually
Well, I am a
comes.
Titans fan myself, Jake, as I've said to you before, so I wouldn't want to lose him. But it may be inevitable. Who knows? And but it's funny actually. The Titans are a frustrating side, aren't they? They sometimes play really well, but never quite seem to be able to get enough results to get off the bottom of the table. And it's frustrating to see them at the bottom when they've got some very good players in the
Yeah, they do.
I think anyway. And Des Hasler hasn't been able to transform them in the way that obviously he would have hoped.
Yeah, I think it's a lot of their problems start at the top and work their way down. I think from all reports, it seems to be some of the things that are happening behind the scenes has contributed to why they haven't had the success that they've wanted on the field. As you said, they've got a great roster and are certainly underperforming. Yeah,
Well,
anything.
you never quite know what's going on behind the scenes at any club, do you? But I mean, they were playing South Sydney at the weekend, who were, next to the bottom of the table. It was what they called the Spoon Bowl game, and they just didn't quite manage to beat Souths, and it just it's sort of typically frustrating, isn't it? Really for them, they didn't lose by much, but it was 18 points to 20. But they couldn't, they're losing these tight games. It's really frustrating.
Yeah, I feel bad for like Kieran Foran, who's playing his final season. He's been a tremendous player for well over, I guess he's over a decade now in the NRL, and the fact that he's going to leave the NRL, trying not to get the spoon, it's just a sad way for him to go out, I think.
Oh
Uh,
gosh, yeah, yeah.
anyway, all right, mate, anything else you want to touch on before we have a look at this weekend's matchups?
No, I think that's just about everything. I think we're waiting to hear now from the RFL board of directors what they've decided to do about the Championship and League One clubs next season, and the betting seems to be that they'll probably merge them into one league because I think they're anticipating just 21 clubs being in that competition next year. So that's probably not enough to split into two separate, Championship and League One as they've had in recent seasons. So, but precisely how the fixture list would then be created is a matter for debate, and I don't think that will be determined until a little bit further down the track. So, but it's going to be quite interesting if that does happen, Jake.
Yeah, for sure, mate, for sure. Um, I'm glad I'm not the one that has to put together that fixture list, mate.
No,
So
no,
we'll
no,
leave that to
never.
the pros.
Wouldn't be wouldn't be easy, but no. Anyway, no, we can look ahead to the weekend's games, and the one or two quite big ones. I've got to say
Mm.
this coming weekend.
Yeah, yeah. I think I was looking at them now. So we got Thursday night. We got Leeds Rhinos taking on Hull KR. That could be a really good match, that one.
Well, as I've said to you earlier, Leeds are on a charge trying to get into the top two. They're in fourth place at the moment, 2 points behind Wigan in second, and behind St Helens, who are third, purely on points difference. But it's a very difficult game for them this one. I mean, Hull KR have beaten them. I mean, Leeds won at Hull KR a few weeks ago, but Hull KR won at Leeds a few weeks before that. So it's the third game. It's the Luke fixture, this one, and it's 1-1 so far. So I think there'll be a very big crowd at Headingley on Thursday night. I think a lot of Hull KR fans will be there. Um, I just wonder whether now that they've beaten Wigan, they might have a bit of a reaction to that win And I think I'm slightly tempted to predict a Leeds win, as Leeds want to continue their charge. And of course, they've got Brad Arthur now for another year, and I think all the Leeds players want to play well for him. So I'm just tipping a very slight Leeds win, probably by about 6 points, I would think. But I wouldn't put any money on it. Put it that way.
Yeah, it'll be a tight game, mate. I almost wish that match was on like Saturday afternoon. I think that'd be a great 3 p.m. kickoff game or
Well, it would,
2
yes,
p.m.
it certainly
Um,
would.
yeah. Moving on to Friday night, we've got St Helens taking on Hull FC in the first matchup. Well, they're at the same time,
Well,
but yes, St Helens taking on Hull FC.
well, Hull are very inconsistent, but they had a great win against Lee at the weekend, and but I can't see them winning at St Helens. I think St Helens are in the same position as Leeds. Really, they're in the top four, but they'd like to be in the top two. They're chasing Wigan, and actually, St Helens have got a significantly better points difference than Wigan, and I think they play Wigan again in a week or two's time. So they've got a great chance of getting into the top two, and I don't think Hull will be able to stop them from doing it. Hull are going to be very anxious to retain their position in the top six. I think uh, after last weekend's results, Wakefield were 3 points behind them, but I think Wakefield will only be 1 point behind them if and when they're awarded the points for the Salford game. So Hull can't afford to relax too much, but I just can't quite see them having the firepower to win at St Helens. I mean, interestingly enough, Aidan Caesar's been their main man all season, and he didn't play against Lee, so they did really well to beat Lee without Aidan Caesar in the side. But I can't see them winning at St Helens without him, put it that way.
Yeah, and then the other matchup we have Lee taking on Salford.
I think that could be a Lee win, just just by about 80 points, I would think.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
yeah, Lee, as I say, Lee are in fifth. They'd like to get into the top four, if not the top two. And if St Helens or Leeds slip up just above them, then they will be in the top four. And obviously their points difference, which is significantly worse than most of the other clubs, or all the other clubs in the top six at the moment, their points difference will receive a massive boost from this Salford game. So, that whether that will count at the end of the day, who knows? Because they're actually on an odd number of points, 29, because they had a golden point game against Hull earlier in the season, which didn't, after 10 minutes of golden point time, didn't result in either side winning. So, but you just can't write Lee off, can you? The way they performed this season.
yeah, for sure, mate. And then moving on to Saturday, we've got Catalans taking on Castleford Tigers.
Well, two teams that have certainly nothing to play for in terms of playoffs, but plenty to play for in terms of pride. Oddly enough, Catalans played really well last Thursday night at Warrington, and Warrington had to score an incredible try by Jake Thewlis. I don't know whether you saw that one, where he just managed to somehow touch the ball down in the corner very acrobatically when the rest of his body seemed to be in the stand somewhere. It was amazing. And then Warrington went on to score a late try through the other Thewlis, I think it was. Yes, Josh Thewlis on 74 minutes, and they secured the win. Catalans played really well in the first half, and they were winning half-time 22-12. In fact, they've been 22-6 up at one stage. So you'd think that Catalans would be in a position to beat Castleford, because Castleford got absolutely hammered, 64 points to 6 at home by Leeds. And after the game, Chris Chester, their coach, gave Castleford an almighty spray in public, more or less saying that all the players, or many of the players, were just not up to scratch, which of course the result suggests is true. But accusing them of effectively having not much heart. Whether the players will react to that and come out fighting against the Catalans in Perpignan, we'll have to wait and see. But I would think that he must be hoping for a very strong reaction.
Yeah, no, definitely, mate. Sunday's matchups, you sort of touched on a little bit there, but we've got Huddersfield taking on Warrington. And yeah, those Theolis brothers, mate, they know how to find their way to the line, don't they?
They certainly do. And Warrington are still hoping to qualify for the top eight. I mean, they're up against it because they're 5 points outside the top eight with 5 games to play. So on the face of it, that looks highly unlikely. But the only thing they can do is to win every game. I think they've got a fixture list that they might think that that's possible. But even if they do win every game, they're by no means guaranteed to get into the top six. But until it's mathematically impossible for them to get into the six, I'm sure that under Sam Burgess they will continue to strive for that outcome. And I mean, it's been a disappointing season. A team like Warrington, with the squad that they've got and the under Sam and the resources that they have, they shouldn't really just be battling to try and get into the top six. They should be there already, and they should be battling to be in the top two, never mind the six. So it has been disappointing, but I think they will beat. I think they will beat Huddersfield on Sunday, even though they're playing away. I mean, Huddersfield conceded 52 points against St Helens last weekend, and I can't see Huddersfield improving that dramatically to beat Warrington. So, I think it'll be a Warrington win, and they'll, continue that charge, trying to get up towards the top six. And of course, Warrington will be helped if Hull and Wakefield lose their games. And I think Wakefield are playing in the other Sunday game, aren't they?
Yeah, yeah. It's Wakefield taking on Warrington, mate. So that
No,
will.
Wigan. Wigan, they're at
Oh,
Wigan.
sorry, Wigan. My bad. We're
Yeah.
just talking about Warrington. Wakefield taking on Wigan, which will be a real
Tester.
firecracker as well, mate.
Well, Wakefield beat Wigan at home a few weeks ago in a terrific match, actually. But I can't see them winning at Wigan, really. They didn't have a game last weekend because of the Salford cancellation. The previous weekend, they were hammered 34-4 at home by St Helens. I just wonder, can Wakefield bounce back from that defeat and shock Wigan on Sunday? I'd be very surprised if they could. And I think Wigan will probably win by a margin somewhere in the low teens in that game. But you never know. Wakefield have played with a lot of spirit this season in a lot of games, and it's not wise to write them off completely. But I just don't think they'll have the firepower to compete with Wigan. Wigan will have Junior Nsemba back and maybe even Bevan French. So I think on that basis, it's probably destined to be a Wigan win.
You know what they say in American football, mate, on any given Sunday.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
if there is going to be an upset,
That's
I'm
the
sure.
ideal. That's the
Yeah,
ideal.
yeah, that's right, mate. All right, mate. I'm happy to wrap things up here if you are, mate. Anything else we need to touch
No, I
on?
think that's absolutely fine. I don't think we need to dwell on too much else, mate. We've been talking for nearly an hour, I think, haven't we? So
Yeah, yeah, nearly an
that's
hour.
probably as much as people want to listen to us for, I would think. With
Including our colleagues in the League Express office, mate. They've probably had to listen to us talking, so apologies to the team there.
yeah,
Um, all right, mate. We'll wrap it up here and do it again next week.
that's great. Speak to you then, mate.
Sounds
And we
good.
might have
Cheers,
a guest
Martin.
next week. Who knows? See you later.
Who
Cheers.
who knows? See you, mate.